everyone. Welcome to another episode of Her Club True Stories. And today we are talking to Debra Weller. Debra is an educator. She is an early childhood consultant and a professional storyteller. She is based out of Florida and she is a creative performance artist who uses oral traditional storytelling and music to engage audiences. She is also an educator who strives to encourage clients to help reach their successful potential. Hi, Deborah. Thank you for taking out time today to talk to us and agreeing to be a part of Her Club True Stories. I'm so grateful to you.
I'm so grateful that you reached out to me and that we can have this beautiful conversation this morning and to reach out to all of the people that are going to be listening.
Yes. Thank you so much. So before we get to know, what you do, let us tell us a little about you.
Yes, I will. Well, I was a very naughty child at times, and I got sent to my room, and my mother would say, "Deborah Ann, go to your room." I loved my room because in my room I had my dolls and my stuffed animals, and I created story with them. And that was the very beginning of my storytelling. Through my life as a teenager, and then when I started teaching preschool, I realized the power of storytelling with children. That to teach meant to tell the story. When you're talking about, let's say, photosynthesis, that big important part of plant life and the production of all the energy that comes from the plant, you make it into a story and then the children understand it. So when I had my own children, the power of storytelling became so important because I could teach them in storytelling how to learn moral ideas, how to be a good child, how to love other people, and just feeding their imagination with story.
Yeah.
In my life, I became storyteller and story teacher.
Okay. So, when did you decide that you, from an educator, you wanted to be a storyteller professionally? When did you decide it?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes. My daughter was very young, 6 months old, and I was finishing my bachelor degree in art education. And I needed someone to watch my child while I took my classes. So I met another woman with a 8-month-old baby girl. And she was a former teacher. So we decided, what is something we could do to help families and to bring families together and children, to serve children in an imaginative way? And we said, let's be storytellers. Wow. And we formed a company in New Jersey, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, near the Philadelphia area, the Annie Lynn Storytellers. We performed as tandem storytellers. So she would tell part of the story and I would tell part of the story. And we'd sing songs and go to libraries, museums, outdoor festivals, schools, public recreation departments. For 12 years, we performed together. So our little daughters grew up with that storytelling, and they could tell all the same stories that they heard us perform.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where it started. Then it transferred when I moved to California after 12 years, and I needed to teach in California. So I finished all my credential work in my master's degree of education in California. And I got a teaching position teaching kindergarten.
Okay.
And that's where I realized storytelling was so important to teach children, but I discovered I could train teachers and adults as well to use storytelling.
Okay, okay. So, this is the first time that I get to know that, storytelling can also be a profession. Because
Mm-hmm.
when we grew up or now, we always, think of storytelling as, just tell a story. I never thought this could turn out to be a profession as well. So, when you started out and when you wanted to tell people that, you are a storyteller, how are people's reactions? And, it is not a conventional stream that you're taking
Mm-hmm.
up, right?
Right. So I very much appreciate your idea of how storytelling was part of your life. And here's how we found out. People would sometimes think, oh, you're a storyteller? Like,
Yeah,
what's that? Okay.
exactly.
Now, many of them were schooled on storytelling in the library system, or just someone,
Yeah,
holding up a book and reading to them.
yeah.
But they did not know about oral tradition storytelling without the book.
Okay.
So it is still, after all my 40 years of performing, people still say, oh, are you going to read a book? Now, there's nothing wrong with reading a book and storytelling too. That's a different form of storytelling. But oral tradition storytelling is knowing the story so well and loving the story so well that you paint a picture with your words and give a whole physical response with your body and your emotions on your face. Your face becomes part of the story. And so a storyteller can tell a very quiet story to engage the audience, or a storyteller can be lively and animated, or use puppets to tell their story. But you take over the stage. Why do we do that as a storyteller? It is proven with neuroscience that when people listen to a story and become fully engaged, it lights up all the areas of the brain similar to listening to classical music.
Okay.
Whereas when a book is just being read, only 5 or 4 centers in the brain will be engaged.
Okay.
So this is very important details of why story is important
Yeah.
and to be used from children through adults.
Okay. Okay. I can understand, children being fascinated with storytelling. What is it different with the adults?
Adults will sometimes say, oh my gosh, a story? Why do I need a story? Like,
Yes.
I did that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
However, I have used it in my presentations and my training because storytelling in business, to get across a message,
Yeah.
80% of the way that we need to engage a client and
Yeah.
engage in giving a professional speaking
Yes.
event is through story woven, even if we have to present data.
Exactly.
The story is what connects you as an adult. For an adult to listen to a story, it brings a connection. And usually what I find is the adults might be a little grumbly or gruffy. Now, they'll go and watch a stage play, which is a form of story.
Yeah.
But to come to a storytelling event, they might say, mm. So that is the key. After a few minutes, the storyteller creates that oneness with the audience. And you know when it's happened. It's very powerful. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden you see the adult relax and they're with you.
Yes.
And if you're telling a poignant story or you want to try to get to an emotional level with an adult, of your story or humor to bring them in.
Yes, exactly. So,
Right? Yeah.
what part of being a storyteller excites you the most?
Okay, thank you. The part that excites me the most is that I get to be all the characters as well. And
Okay.
I change my voice, and
Yeah.
I get to play with the audience no matter what age they are. And I never tell my story exactly the same. When I get on the stage or on a virtual
Yeah.
experience, I look at my audience, and sometimes I'll change my story at the last minute
Oh, okay.
because I get a feeling from the audience that they need to hear a different story. So I have 250 stories up here ready to go. And this is so important about what excites me about the storytelling is I get to create and I get to play, even with the adults. I get to deliver very poignant messages too. And that is another way to engage even with those teenagers who think they're way too big for story. The important excitement about the story is, as a professional storyteller, it's my business. And
Yeah.
it gives me flexibility when I was raising my young children, and now my children are grown, but I still have flexibility in my scheduling.
Yes.
The first 6 months of storytelling, I was afraid. It
Yeah.
took my partner and I 6 months to be brave enough to go on the stage. Then
Exactly.
people kept calling us back, and we had to learn how to do our stories in less than 6 months, from
Okay.
down to 6 months to a week to an hour to put together a story.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, my next question to you was, what were the prep that you underwent to become a professional storyteller?
The first thing we did was spend a lot of time in the 398 section of the library in the fairy tales.
Okay.
Because, okay, I have to research my work.
Yes.
When I'm given a topic, I want to be authentic,
Yeah.
and I want to bring, especially if I'm doing cultural stories, I want to honor the stories of other cultures.
Yeah.
And I want to honor that. I primarily use folk tales and fables, or the Panchatantra tales,
Oh,
because those are tales that are in public domain.
yeah.
And at times when I'm not being filmed, I might use a literary tale that I've adapted from a current author and ask for permission. So you have to be research based to be a storyteller.
Okay.
You have to also connect with other storytellers in various organizations, because you want to go through the coaching process of making your story better, asking yourselves those questions, because people can tell what I call a blah blah story. Once upon a
Yeah.
time there was a. But if you really want to engage the audience, you have to find ways to use your voice. So voice lessons can sometimes be important. You have to find ways to speak clearly in your diction and at a level where people will understand.
Yes.
So storytelling is an art, like acting, that
Yeah.
you need to get feedback from other storytellers and critique from other storytellers. So you associate with other storytellers or people who are public speakers to gain information to make you better at your art and craft of storytelling. You have to be humble to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I get your point. And, coming to today, back then, storytellers were not heard of, but today, I see a lot of storytellers. So, what differentiates you against the others?
Well, you know, The wonderful thing about storytelling and in the storytelling community is no two storytellers are alike.
Yeah.
Each storyteller is unique in the way that they present. What makes me stand out is I love to be silly when I'm telling to children and families. And also what I have is I play my guitar, so I can bring music to my storytelling as well. And that way I engage the audience further with music. Every storyteller has their own little niche. Some people only want to tell to adults. Some people, like I have the expand that I will tell from young children, preschoolers, through adults. Some people don't want that. They'll say, oh no, not the little ones.
They stick to one genre itself.
Yes. So what makes me stand out is I'm willing to learn and to put myself out there now, especially that storytelling has become a virtual art now. And so that's what I have to do to create. And I will create a whole new story format when I'm asked to train adults on storytelling so that they can be better at their public speaking skills and getting over their fear of speaking. Then I take on the role of teacher storyteller and mentor storyteller. So it becomes a little different part of my storytelling.
Okay. Then how do you differentiate, for example, you give a storytelling session to a kids an hour in this hour, and next you're coaching somebody, a young adult, and on the next hour you are a teacher to an adult. So how do you manage all of it?
Well, sometimes the crossover melds into one another, like, oh my gosh, I have to remind myself, wait a minute. I have to change the venue. With my young little children, I am right there with them when it's an in live person. I'm using puppets. I'm using sometimes, especially when I have English language learners, I will use visuals like a storyboard, a picture to help. When I went to Vietnam to tell at that school in Ho Chi Minh City, the beautiful kindergarten school, I used pictures because I knew that the language barrier would be important. When I graduate then up to telling, let's say, to middle school or high school children, I tell a whole different kind of story. Little ones need short stories with a lot of interaction. And the older ones can take deeper stories that maybe be a life quest kind of story, a hero tale that would identify with what they're going through. When I switch to adults or in the teacher mode with adults, let's say I'm giving a conference on storytelling in the classroom to teachers, then I'm teaching the aspects of storytelling related to a curriculum. When I'm teaching adults to improve their public speaking skills, we use story as the base to help them overcome their fear of speaking, because if they feel comfortable telling a story, they can translate it into their presentation of the facts that they need to give to their audience. So I wear many hats, but I'm able to switch pretty successfully. But most people will say my adult presentations are highly engaging.
Oh, okay.
Because they'll say, you have a lot of enthusiasm.
Even I feel the same, age is just a number. Okay. And, when you tell stories, when people engage with you, what kind of achievement are you looking at? What gives you the thrill to go on stage and present your next story? For example, I'm giving a presentation and I hear claps and they say, oh, well done. So that is my achievement. for you, what are the parameters?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I always clarify what my client wants in the storytelling event, whether it's storytelling for children or if I'm doing a presentation. I have to clarify. The other thing I want to know is I always ask my question, what am I going to give to my audience? How will I honor them? Whether I'm doing a presentation or whether I'm working on them, because it's not always about me. It's what can I give that they will take away, whether it's a child or an adult. When I've told stories for several years in a row with the recreation department, those beautiful children will come back to me and start repeating a phrase from a story that I told 5 years ago. That shows you how important it stayed in their memory. That they remembered that story. And it's the same when you go on stage like you did in your presentation. The audience connected so well with you. They felt they got your message that you were giving. And it's something they can take home. The best speakers are the ones that honor the audience. Some of the best compliments I get is when they don't clap right after my story. And you know why? Because they are still walking through the story and they haven't left the story yet. They've made their own video in their head. And they are still there. And with a presentation, adults will normally clap, and but children not always. And then the teacher will prompt them to clap, oh, but I'm like, no, it's okay, They're there.
They're still
So
processing
with adults, I give them that honor of they're here. And when you do a presentation, sometimes adults aren't always there because they chose to be there. It's a requirement for work. And so you have to combat that and keep them awake after lunch, and make sure that you are reaching out with your eye contact. And with the variations in your voice and your gestures. To keep them with you.
Yes, so true, so true. So, Debra, you have been an educator as well. Storytelling comes part of your work profile, if I may. But as an educator, what do you feel that should be the changes going forward? Should storytelling be a major part of all the curriculum, and how does it benefit to all age groups?
Okay, I really appreciate that question. I became a storyteller, story teacher. What I found in the power of working with many ages of children through adults in training is that the story is the heart of the curriculum. I would always start my classroom with my very young children by passing a story stick around the circle to hear their stories. If a teacher does not hear the stories of their students to find out who the children are, they cannot make that connection of community in their classroom. I've taught after-school storytelling and seen children who are very quiet and shy and not confident blossom on the stage after they've been guided through learning how to tell their stories. I've seen docents in museums go through my storytelling classes with me, and all of a sudden they come alive in the museum when they are now engaging their listeners. So storytelling can be the thread that weaves throughout the entire curriculum. If you're teaching science, you have to break it down in story format. Even chemistry,
Yes.
it's like a recipe. If you just give them facts and boring information in a textbook, most learners are going to go, oh, I don't understand.
Yeah.
But when the teacher takes the time to break down the process by weaving the sequence of the story, that is how the brain retains information, is by having it in a story sequence. So to be a good teacher and to honor the neuroscience of learning, you need to break down the math story, history. Oh my gosh, history is so perfect for storytelling, right? Not just a timeline of facts, but let's look at the story, the human story that came from that. So with each age group that a teacher might interact with from preschool through adult, you have to adapt that story, first of all, to their concentration span. Secondly, story enriches vocabulary. Story is the basis of literacy, because our young children first learn by listening. And then they see the print. So when I teach children, I combine both the storytelling and the print so that they can see that, in the beautiful illustrations in picture books need to be seen. And our English language learners, they need the story format to understand the nuances of the language. So storytelling, the heart, I say, of the curriculum.
Exactly. I so wish, while growing up, we had storytelling in our curriculum as well, because while we grew up, it was just memorizing the facts or, reading the facts, and it made education so boring and so monotonous. I see a lot of difference now in the way the curriculum has been designed all over the world, as well as young kids and young educators are taking out different paths to educate the new generation.
I think we have to combat the fact that these children are digital natives. They've grown up with screens, and it can be impersonal at times. So when they come in the classroom, their attention span can be very limited because they're used to controlling the screen, but they can't control the human. And so we have to realize technology is such an important part of our education, and it's definitely has its own way to engage the learner. But when they learn to listen fully, to hear the story of the educator in the classroom and how the educator can adapt and change that direction of the learning in a moment's notice. Whereas when they're programmed into a learning program on a screen, they can manipulate it, but they can't interact successfully as they can interacting with peers in discussion group or with the teacher and owning their learning through story.
Correct. Yeah. So, we come to another section that is, I discussed motherhood as well as having a career. So you are a mother as well, and balancing out your career as well as your family. How did you manage it in your growing up years in your with your children who were growing up then?
I not only had my storytelling business when my daughter was born, I was painting needlepoint canvases, and I'm a calligrapher. So I would be doing wedding invitations and all kinds of things. And so as a mother with a baby, we're all exhausted with our babies, right?
Yes.
I would wait until she took a nap and I'd learn a story or do some envelopes or paint some canvases.
Okay.
Then, at night, I'd make sure my babies always went down between 7:30 and 8 o'clock at night. And then I would work from 8 at night till maybe 10 or 11 at night. So I would try to work it in. With storytelling, my partner and I, when we told in New Jersey with the Annie Lynn Storytellers, we'd bring our babies with us as best we could. Sometimes we'd get a babysitter, and we'd, especially our toddlers, we would, if we were going to a preschool and they did not mind, they learned to sit. Every now and then we had an embarrassing moment when our children decided to misbehave or be distracting. But most of the time there. And then as we were earning more money, we could afford a babysitter.
Yeah.
But I think as a mother, I was always a working mother.
Yeah.
I was home from a full-time job for 8 years, raising my 2 children, but I was doing all my part-time work, my storytelling and my artwork in all my moments, as well as cooking and cleaning and caring for babies and being a wife too. You can't forget the husband. So my storytelling was my blessing money, and my art money was my blessing money during the time I was able to stay home with my young children.
Okay.
So by doing that, I was able to provide for things that we might have needed, sometimes making ends meet with the budget at the end of the month. Or I always found my blessing money, my storytelling, and my artwork, I put into my own bank account.
Okay.
And I have my own separate bank account with that money. Okay. When I became fully employed as a teacher, then, teaching is a 60-hour-a-week job.
Yeah.
And you have to balance your family life because your family is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So my husband was working a job where he commuted. So I had to stop teaching by 4 o'clock or 4:30 every afternoon, and then go and run my children to piano lessons, to sporting activities, clubs and things that they were involved in. So as a mother, we have to be so careful because we take on a lot, not only the care and the cooking of our families. Some of us might have elderly parents we're caring for, and we have our children. And when I was 40, I had some health problems. All of a sudden, I could not push the cart from the grocery store to my car one day.
Okay.
I thought I was having neurological problems. I went to the doctor and he said, because of all the stress of trying to be super mom, you have basically a thyroid that does not function and your adrenal system is under stress. It was a wake-up call for me. I realized I could not go at that pace anymore and maintain my health. Now, I always taught my children to do chores around the house and help with things. They learned how to do their own laundry. They learned how to clean. They made their own sandwiches for lunch. And they helped then in the summers when I was off from teaching and doing my storytelling work. I taught them to cook so that they could be self-sufficient. My husband, not so much. But, we blended. He was very good at fixing things in the house, and we just blended.
Correct.
Having my summers off as a teacher was a saving grace. So moms, please be careful in all that we do. We are successful women. We have studied. We have our own businesses, or we're working full time. And I didn't have any help, no in-laws around to help me. It was all on my own. But my friends, we formed a mother group, and we would trade off our children from time to time so that we could have a chance to be in our house alone, get a
Yeah,
massage,
exactly. Yeah.
take a walk. As a mother and a career person, you have to take care of yourself because you want to be around. Like now I have a life that I'm not teaching full time, but I'm working part time in my business. I think that'll go on forever as long as I'm healthy and able. And we need to honor who we are as human beings and to love ourselves enough to take time out to restore and refresh.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Debra. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
taking out time today to talk to us. For viewers who are listening to us and would want to get in touch with Debra,
Mhm.
Debra, could you please tell our viewers uh, how could they reach you?
Thank you. Yes, I do have a website, and you will see it on one of the slides. It's https://storytellingcourses.com. That is where I have storytelling classes online and virtual coaching sessions. And so you will find it in the details of the slides that Shilpa will perform for you. The other place is I'm on Instagram at Deb Storyteller, and I produce a lot of videos there to help you both as a parent and a professional. I'm on Facebook. I have a personal site, Debra Weller, and then Storytelling Courses is my other site. You can find me YouTube videos. So they're on there that teach aspect of storytelling, and that is in my YouTube channel, Debra Weller Storyteller. So I put myself out there on the virtual grounds now. I was so used to live performances, but now I like to reach out to all my international audience as well. So follow me and friend me, and I'll be happy to reach out to you.
Yeah. So thank you, Debra. Viewers who are listening to us today, please reach out to Debra. It was amazing to know that, storytelling is a profession and
Mhm.
the benefits of storytelling in our daily lives, not only to young kids, but adults as well. So thank you so much, Debra. This was
Thank you.
indeed a very educational session for me as well as I think many of us who are listening to you today will get to know the nuances of storytelling as well as understand why it is important to weave storytelling into our lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's